In 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And welcome everyone to this episode of the Real Leaders Podcast. And welcome everyone to this episode of the Real Leaders Podcast. Before we begin, I just want to tell you guys a few things. We have Edelson right here, the CEO of Fireclay Tile. I just want to let you guys know that you all can ask him questions that we will ask him at the end of the show. So if you have any questions, there's a little chat box right there to the right. So what I'd like a few of you to do today is just type a yes into the chat box just to make sure that it's working, you know how to use it, and that I can see your questions. If you put a question mark at the end, I'll be able to read it and we'll be able to ask Eric at the end of the show. Also, folks, if this is your first time being here, welcome. I'm really excited that you're here. We love bringing the energy. We love having on these impact leaders who are harnessing capitalism to sustain the planet, people, and profits, and who just like to keep it real in the show. So this is your first time. There should be a link flying in. We'd like you to subscribe to the podcast because we want to make sure that you're notified when this episode is edited and published to all of our platforms. Lastly, if you're returning back on, as many of you are, make sure to leave a review, folks. I'm going to ask you time and time again. I asked everyone on the show, Eric, every single time, please leave a review. I know it's hard to do, but if you go on the Apple Podcast, scroll all the way down to the bottom, leave a review. Really appreciate it. With that being said, we'll dive into this episode in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And welcome everyone to this episode of the Real Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Edwards. Joining us today is the CEO of Fireclay Tile, Eric Edelson. Eric, thanks for being with us today.
Oh, this is a huge honor. A huge fan of this podcast. Thanks so much for bringing the energy and bringing this important subject of mission-driven business to the forefront. So great to be here.
I'm really excited to have you on. We met at the Impact Awards Summit back in, I think it was May it was. And we had a nice conversation. You shared a book with me, and I'd recommend it to everyone listening to it. It's called The Obstacle is the Way. That book has helped myself and our team out with so many challenges and overcoming many obstacles and really just saying, hey, it is the way. It's the way you got to pursue and perceive many obstacles that come into your life. So I just want to appreciate you for that. And I knew you'd be an interesting guest to have on the show because Fireclay Tile is doing some interesting stuff right now. So I'm interested, though. Tiles. Why do you like tiles?
Yeah, great question. And but before I answer that, I just, it's so funny. We met in a Zoom conference because of like a private chat. And it's funny, I've been doing a lot of private chatting on Zoom in this, new way of working. And I have made some incredible connections. So even in this distributed work, virtual work, there's just new ways to connect. And I offered to give you that book. I've gifted that book a lot. Ryan Holiday's Obstacle Way, and it's a great read. I highly suggest it. I love gifting. If anyone would like a copy, hit me up on LinkedIn or send me a note, and I will gift it to you as well. But getting back to your question on Tile, my journey to Fireclay was a little different. I happened to meet the founder through a family friend. The business, this was in 2008. The business was in a bit of distress. I started helping him. It probably had less to do with Tile. It had a lot more to do with him. His name's Paul. It had a lot more to do with the manufacturing side. I actually geek out a lot on mass customization. Tile lends itself incredibly well to that. So because we're able to mass customize for any customer anywhere, there's just an incredible experience that goes with it. So I'm probably if you meet anyone from a 150 person team, I'm probably the one who's the least strong with our product and Tile and even design, but I love our customers. I love our customer experience. I love the medium with which we're able to be creative. And so Tile and ceramics and artisan tile lend itself incredibly well to that. So anyway, we can dive more into it, but that's how I got to Tile. That's why I love Tile.
Well, I was curious because it's, when you read Tile just on the title, you say it's not the most sexy thing out there, but then you actually take a closer look and you're like, tiles have been around since the dawn of time. And 25,000 years ago, they've been around. Everyone's seen them. Now, why do you think tiles are so special and why do you think people like them?
Yeah, tile is incredibly sexy. Someone once told me that the second oldest profession after prostitution was ceramics. If you think going like way back to many centuries ago, So clay, we as children play in the dirt. In art class, we actually play with clay, and you think about like my kids play with clay in school, and so everyone's had this experience with clay, the ability to kind of like take your hands and actually form something and sculpt something, and color it and put it into a kiln and have these different colors and effects come out and transform it. Everyone's had that experience, and I'm constantly amazed how many people I meet who have a hobby in ceramics, and then when you think about your home or business or your corporate office or hotel, tile actually ends up being like one of the core design features that you have control over. And there's so much color and pattern at play that you're actually able to express yourself. So it actually ends up being incredibly sexy, incredibly appealing. The colors with which we're able to create, the sizes, patterns, every project is different. Every project is unique. We always say our story starts with yours. So there is a lot of appeal. And in this environment today where we're so digitally enabled, everything is about photography, tile just lends itself incredibly well to that visual, sensation that everyone wants. I mean, there is a phrase of tile porn out there that exists, and people really get excited about it. So we enjoy that, and we love celebrating that.
There's something satisfying about watching your Instagram page and seeing someone pour that paste that just fits perfectly onto a tile. It's just something about it. It just is really nice and really soothing. Now, you also mentioned, Eric, that you may not be the most tile passionate person, maybe more of the business minds of the organization. So when you met Paul Burns, the last founder, what was the company like at that point in time?
Yeah, so Paul's an incredible ceramicist. We love sharing his story. His story goes back to, he started Fireclay in 1986 in San Jose, California. But the story really goes back to the 1950s and even the 1920s. His uncle Chester bought a fledgling tile factory in 1950 in San Jose, which he ran for roughly 35 years, called Stonelight Tile. And Paul, as a young child, actually, him and his mom moved in with his uncle, and so he, at age 12, started working in the kilns and at the factory. And so it's really like in his blood. He started Fireclay in 1986 with a few friends from Fireclay. And Fireclay was best described, during that 1986 to 2009 timeframe as, I'd say, a small artisan ceramic studio, maybe 30, 40 people at its height, a couple $1 million in revenue. Paul was really the leader, did like typical entrepreneur, small business owner, did everything, balanced the checkbook in his head. Classic art studio in terms of not many systems, beautiful product, but, somewhat disorganized. Paul's so creative that he was always thinking about the next product and not as much on, selling the product he just launched and getting it into the customer's hands or pricing or marketing. And so, in 2008, when I met him, the company was, meanwhile, this is the start of the, recession. We're in the building industry. So, the company had actually enjoyed quite a bit of growth earlier, and all of a sudden now, in a declining environment was really challenged. So honestly, the company was in distress. Paul was writing paychecks out of his wife's bank account. He had an accountant, bookkeeper who turned out to be embezzling from the company. So it was not pretty. And I would say it was, not too many weeks away from a really difficult decision. And so I just started helping him. Honestly, it was, I had just gotten my MBA about a year ago, and hadn't really taken to, I'd say a typical job, didn't want to find that kind of corporate work, and was looking for my own thing or really to support someone else. So there was just this opportunity. Paul needed help. I wasn't expensive. I was basically willing to work for free for equity. And, we got along great. I was able to really take Fireclay as almost this, science business experiment, my like petri dish where I could experiment and play. Paul was really strong on the ceramics. And so we had really complementary skill sets. And so that's really what kind of kickstarted the relationship. And that was the state of affairs. My first year here, we did just about $1.5 million in sales. We were about 20 people, had probably, a couple $1,000s in the bank at any given time. Making payroll was literally, hoping a check came in the door that we could deposit. And I would say every other payroll period, Paul and I wouldn't get paid. That was just the reality of it. August of 2009, we literally didn't pay payroll to the company. I remember taking a 6-pack of beer out to the back room where we had a bunch of team members and just saying, "I'm sorry, we have no money." But this was 2009. Fireclay or California was furloughing jobs. This was just so we had an environment where that wasn't the worst thing that could happen. The worst thing was losing jobs. So we got through it though, and the rest is history.
So when you came in, you said it was like a petri dish. Did you have a specific method you were doing to grow the company? What was the approach really when you came into the organization and were trying to step up and lead?
Yeah, so I had never been in a turnaround situation before. My background was really on finance and venture capital. So, looking back, I probably acted a little too slow in certain situations. And then secondly, it was just a really small company with that wasn't profitable with very little revenue. So there just really wasn't a lot of money to do things. So we had I definitely wrote like a business plan and had a step-by-step process. I say it came down to a couple things. First and foremost was tools. So we went really long on the Salesforce platform and needed a scalable way to grow our company. I say two was creating a more like digitally forward, it's just like web experience and just making it feel like we were bigger than we were and kind of just projecting an air of confidence. And then I would say at the time, it was just really rebuilding relationships. So, that was both internally with our team and then externally. At the time, we were a wholesale manufacturer. So we sold to tile stores around the country. So it was really like trying to just engender goodwill. There was years of damaged relationships. So trying to build those relationships back up, gain trust, confidence, make sure that we were marketing and selling to them correctly. So that was really, the playbook for the first few years, just to get the business stabilized to a place where we could maybe be more creative.
Eric, you mentioned that it's clay. It comes from the ground. It's an environmental resource. Now, Fireclay Tile is the first tile certified B Corporation, as well as your carbon neutral company. Were those values always in the organization? And when did this focus of sustainability, of impact, of stakeholder capitalism come to fruition?
Yeah. So I'll say a couple of things. I mean, at the time, Paul was very inventive with regard to materials. So we used a lot of crazy recycled content. We had like recycled glass in our tile. We were trying to put crushed toilets in our tile. We actually bought a fledgling glass tile company, and we're using recycled glass from the solar industry. So we were doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But I would also say Fireclay and Paul were typical of a lot of small businesses or entrepreneurs or founders that I've met, where you have a person who's eager to do the right thing and has the right intention and mentality, but is not able to take the steps and put the frameworks in place and start just like doing the work. So they might say, yeah, I want to share upside with employees, or I want better benefits, but the next level of like getting it done is just not there. They're so focused on their craft or their customers. And so I was able to really kind of bring that forward to Fireclay. So I would say I heard about the B Corp model in 2008 when I met one of the founders of B Lab. And then, sorry, 1 second. We first took the assessment in 2011 and failed royally. I mean, like total failure, just like thinking we were doing the right thinking. Here we are, we've got maybe 30, 40 employees at the time. We give them healthcare, and we were just way off. So it actually took us another 4 years until 2015 for us to be able to make the investments and put in place the corporate governance, the benefits, all the other things that really kind of become really important when you're thinking about a stakeholder mentality or becoming a B Corp. So that was a very intentional thing that we did over a number of years.
Eric, what is stakeholder capitalism to you?
I mean, I think that B Lab and B Corp, I will just try to quote what they do. I mean, I think it's really this getting away from the shareholder capitalism of we are here to make money for our investors and migrating more to a focus on, yes, shareholders, but importantly, employees, your environment, your community, your customers, and that much more holistic sense of everyone winning together. And not just saying that, but also taking the steps in the same way that for shareholders you do your financial accounting and you have your cap table and ownership and distributions or whatever it might be. for all those other stakeholders, you're measuring your environmental impact, you're doing the work to understand your carbon impact and taking steps to mitigate that. You're really focusing on benefits and going deep and thinking not just about healthcare, but broadly across people and families and children. It's thinking about your customers and how can I be a better steward for our customers or support our vendors better. And then making sure that you have the corporate governance in place, that you have checks and balances. So, I can't go rogue or a company can't go rogue. And whether that's an advisory board, a board of directors, compensation committee, whatever those things are, it's really making sure that you have those audits in place. So I think it's really it's the form of capitalism that's going to allow us to get, the next 20, 30, 15 years without total implosion. It's the form that's going to help bring back, wealth equality to a more normalized place. It's going to be the thing that I think gets our environment in a place that allows my children to grow up with clean water and fresh air. It's certainly the thing that, gets me out of bed every morning.
So maybe let's walk through a few examples of the supply chain, the value chain. Where have you added value? And I know a lot of people maybe listening to this for the first time say, well, Eric, you're spending a lot of money. That's a lot, coming in from your EBITDA, you're taking a loss on this. How do you view these investments? And maybe explain to our audience a few examples throughout the value chain.
Yeah, I think, there's so many. I think let's take benefits. So, we talk so much about healthcare, and we talk so much about the rising cost of healthcare, and it is crazy. We spend hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and but there are so many other incremental benefits that can really help for much less money. So I think a lot of people get focused on, the total dollars of whatever benefits, but when you start to think about these as ratios, so for example, maybe you spend $100,000 on your healthcare, and for $2,000 you could have life insurance, and for another $3,000 you could have long and short-term disability insurance. Yes, in total, $5,000 sounds a lot, but when you compare that as a ratio against your total payroll or your total headcount or revenue, that percentage may all of a sudden feel a lot smaller and a lot more manageable. And so I think you have to think differently about these things and not just think about total dollars, or just not get so scared about, healthcare or just the cost broadly. So I think a lot of times you have these big wins with a little bit of effort that costs much less than you think they do. On the supply chain, I think carbon's a great one. We've been offsetting our carbon emissions for years through Carbon Fund. And I'll admit, it's not the easiest thing to do. Like, I run all kinds of reports. I have to, and it's not perfect. You make assumptions, but by looking at it, I can tell you, I get so much closer to the data about our shipments, for example, or the location of our vendors, that I'm now asking questions of our team. Hey, why are we bringing material in from this location? Like, that's just really far. And maybe we find a supplier that's more local that all of a sudden is actually more cost effective. Or maybe all of a sudden I'm looking at shipments and I'm going, God, we're like, our carbon impact for, air freight is really high. Like, maybe we can ship to more, via ground more or something like that. So I find that, like, a lot of times the cost benefit comes back. A great one is waste. We've been really focused on waste diversion, and we have a team member, David, on our team, who, I tapped. He's our environmental health and safety specialist, and he's really more of a compliance person. But I tapped him last year to say, hey, I think I'd love you to just explore this a bit more. And he and his group really started, like, looking at waste. We went from having, 2 huge of these, like, debris boxes that are on site that we would fill every week and take out, to we have, like, one now that's basically a quarter version, and our business is much bigger. And so, what have we done? Well, we focused more on recycling. We focused more on working with our vendors to change the packaging that they send products to. It's saved us money. It has helped us to be more of a vendor advocate by sharing feedback with vendors and asking, how can we collaborate more, and maybe moving from 50-pound bags to big super sacks, or recycling super sacks. And so, like, again, things like that seemed very daunting and you think are expensive, all of a sudden become really collaborative and actually, like, much more freeing for us because we're more thoughtful about it. So I think there are so many different places where those kinds of wins exist as you start to ask questions. And I think turning to your supply chain and simply, like, it sounds so silly, but picking up the phone and having a conversation with them and saying, hey, we have a goal of being zero waste. What can we do about it? It's shocking, just like basic stuff we heard from vendors on what they do or capabilities that they had that we had never understood came to light. So, I think a lot of these things are much easier than we think they are. It just involves, someone who's excited about it and a team rallying around it, a leader being focused and supportive of it, and talking to the community to learn and understand and ask questions.
Now, Eric, who are some of your customers, whether they're large businesses, contractors, direct, and someone that's trying to work on a place at home? Who are they? And have you found that they're going with Fireclay Tile because of this commitment to being, a regenerative organization?
So I always like to say we make the world's most beautiful tile, and people choose Fireclay because of how awesome our product is. And so I think first and foremost, they're looking at the beauty of the product and is it in my budget, or how do I find a solution that's within my budget?
Right.
So we got to win on those two levels, and then all the fun stuff comes to happen. I was on a call yesterday with a really innovative company in our space called Material Bank, and they shared a stat that 90% of specifiers, which is architects and designers, are demanding products with a sustainability message. And we know this from consumers. You can look at any survey of millennials and even older folks. People want companies and they want to support brands that have a sustainability mission, are focused on transparency, sharing that message. So we believe firmly in that. But at the same time, we have to win on the product. We have to be beautiful. We have to be cost effective. We have to be, delivering product in a reasonable time frame. So, I'd say the message around sustainability resonates. It's something that is a differentiator for us. We're the first and only B Corp in tile. There are people who are focused on product certifications, but we're the only ones certifying at a company level. We're focused on a holistic carbon offset, whereas a lot of other people might be a product offset or maybe a shipping offset, where we're holistic scope 1, 2, and 3 full company offset of carbon. And so I think that message, we're trying to communicate that in a customer friendly way. And I think it resonates. Going back to your question, our customers are literally everyone, which is the coolest part. I mean, literally, I was texting with one of my best friends from college today who just bought her first house, and she's like, "Eric, I need some tile." And the joy that I get to be able to make tile for her in her home is so cool. When I got to this business in 2009, none of my friends had homes. We were young, we were in our late 20s, no one had homes. They all now are buying homes or thinking about homes. And so the number of friends I personally had been able to touch with this product is awesome. So that's one. I'd say second, we just get to work with incredible brands. And so we supply tile for amazing brands like Starbucks and Sweetgreens and Google and Whole Foods. And I mean, you can find our product in most technology offices across the company. One of the coolest projects we did was Salesforce. I told you in 2009, we went long on the Salesforce platform. I am a Salesforce fanatic. I drink the Kool-Aid. I think Mark Benioff is one of the greatest leaders of all time. We now have our tile in all of their offices globally in this really cool custom mural that Mark chose along with this incredible Japanese artist. And to be able to deliver that in a custom solution for a brand like that and a leader like that is awesome. We just did a project for LaGuardia Airport. It was one of the world's largest murals of all time. We did it in partnership with a world-renowned artist, Laura Owens, in collaboration with LaGuardia Airport and the New York Public Art Fund. And this is epic. It's LaGuardia's new terminal. It is one of the coolest projects you will ever see of public art. And we were able to deliver that. And then, thousands and thousands of homeowners. So the size, scale, diversity, going back to that idea of mass customization that I talked about, that we're able to create and deliver product real time. All of this is made to order. So we don't have stock. We make everything to order. We have incredible systems and solutions to make that happen. But that you can go in and pick your color and pick your size and do it for all quantities, whether it's a fireplace or a backsplash or an entire hotel. That is our promise, and that's just so cool that we're able to do that for all of those incredible customers.
It's really cool artwork. I mean, I've been on the website, seen the Salesforce art, and that's why I wanted to ask you about this mass customization. It seems like you've cut out the middleman here. You don't need someone else to bring you orders and things like that. Now you've gone direct to consumer. What were some of the constraints that you ran into along the way, and how did you face those constraints and innovate around them?
Yeah, so I mean, going back to the story, I told you a little bit about how we were a wholesale manufacturer, and We turned that business around. So by 2012, we were a couple $1 million in revenue. I think I was still paying myself, a very meager salary. My wife, we just had our first kid. My wife was definitely pressuring me, going like, what's going on? When's this tile thing going to work? And, and Kevin, I'll be honest, I was super depressed. I was very sad. I was doing everything. And I just didn't know what this was going to be. And I ended up talking to another company that I admired. I stalked the CEO, made up email addresses, trying to find this guy's name, and eventually got on the phone with him and had an interesting conversation. And basically, February 16th, 2013, I had, if you remember that movie, Jerry Maguire, it starts with Jerry having this manifesto epiphany moment in the middle of the night. I did that. I literally woke up at 4 in the morning, got to my computer, wrote this 3-page manifesto about how we were going to go direct, how we were never going to win in wholesale, how we needed to create a brand and take control of sales and marketing and all of that. And within a couple of weeks, we had raised about $800,000. We ended up raising about $2 million from friends and family that year. And January 6, 2014, we relaunched our business. We literally fired all of those wholesale customers and said, we're going a different direction. We realized we would never win in wholesale, that we were just never going to penetrate that market. There was too much competition. There were too many products. There was too much misinformation. We needed to control our own destiny. And so we relaunched this business with this idea of being vertically integrated, customer first. Whether it was a commercial or residential client, we were going to satisfy you. And so we've taken the business from what was about I'd say $2.5 million in sales to over 20. And we've done it without raising a ton of money. We just raised about $3 million, but we've always had the customer first and foremost. And so the challenges in doing that have been all over the place. I mean, one, cash. We have to build a brand. We have to build a factory, manufacturing, build a sales organization, all these things that cost a ton of money. I like to joke, we've run this business with like $100,000 in the bank for 10 years. Now we have more today because we've developed a really nice business model, but it was a lot of, just scrappy work, a lot of dark days of almost running out of money and not being able to get out of bed because, the factory was behind and we just couldn't make tile. We had problems, just getting it right where the brand was growing and production was growing. We have complicated sales cycles. We have distributed customers where you might have a designer specify it, but then a homeowner purchase it. Some sales are 3-year sales cycles. Some orders are a couple $100. Some orders are hundreds of thousands of dollars. So there's such diversity across so many different dimensions that the complexity of that, hurt us at different times. We didn't either have the systems or the machines or the people. So all of those different steps have been learning opportunities for us to get better. As we talked about, the obstacles away, all those obstacles have become opportunities to get better and to learn. And so we've created this culture. We call it our ganas culture. It's a Spanish word for desire and heart and will. And so we have this culture of ganas of just like, we will figure it out. Like there is just not a problem that comes through these doors that we don't kind of like run right head on into and figure out how to get better at it. So all of those challenges, and there's been a lot of dark days, have created opportunities. And here we are 11 years later, and it's feeling like, the brand is getting tremendous recognition and we're having success. But at the same time, that Jeff Bezos, Amazon, day one model still exists here where it feels like every day is a new day.
And I want to touch on that a little bit more. You said you were depressed. Like, what was going on in your life at that time? What were people telling you? And then after you came through that tunnel, what did you learn about yourself and your company?
This was, my lowest moment in life was the fall of 2017. My wife and I were having a tough time. We had 2 kids, and my wife's an incredible business leader. She's a total badass. I'm so fortunate to be a partner with her. But we just weren't getting along, and we were talking to, we were getting help, and then we just had a team in disarray. I had a team member who we love sit me down and say, I think I'm going to go somewhere else. And fortunately, we were able to keep him. He's now our plant manager, but we were broke. Just had leaders that weren't the right people, that weren't the right places. And I was just doing it, honestly, it was all my fault. I was doing a horrible job as a leader. I had too many different initiatives. I was not holding people accountable where they were making mistakes. And we had we had like a plant fire that was small, and our systems just kind of broke. And so, literally it ended up with me on the floor of our factory, sleeping in my sleeping bag and sleeping pad in the mother's room or nursing room a couple times a week, as I would just plant myself there trying to figure out what was wrong, and then slowly start kind of changing myself and changing my behavior and my attitude, and then starting to try to gain trust again and get people thinking differently and retooling our systems and retooling our capabilities and our machines. And so, it was, again, it was my fault. I had to change myself. I had to fix myself. And, we were able to get through it. And I was just fortunate. There were a number of people who, I'm fortunate to still have on the team who partnered with me and partnered with us to get through it. My wife and I, got through it, and things are good. So I think it's, having great people around it, but, it was really me like owning it and like doing the hard personal work and taking responsibility. That was the most important thing for me getting through that.
Eric, you said that you dropped off a 6-pack of beer when you couldn't pay your employees. Now you're giving them a nice employee ownership plan. Explain to our audience the big news today and what's going on with that, and why you decided to give your employees more ownership in the company.
Yeah, it's so cool, Kevin. This is a huge day for us. We're going public with this announcement that we have massively expanded our employee ownership. So, as I told you at the beginning, I work for Sweat Equity, and I think equity is a huge driver of financial success. We see it in the news, all the big tech companies, et cetera. And so I've seen that firsthand with just my friends and peers, and I've always that was always something I cared about. And so we first introduced employee ownership in 2013 with a stock option plan when we raised capital from some investors. We increased that ownership in 2015. And so going into this year, we had about 15% employee ownership. The founder that I mentioned, Paul, over the last few years, it became apparent that there was just a transition happening, and Paul served this company incredibly well. And at the same time, we had a new crop of leaders and visionaries who were taking the company forward. So we were able to work out a great outcome for Paul and his family to really recognize and reward his 35 years of service to Fireclay. And so in exchange for repurchasing his ownership and actually our factory that he and his wife own, we've now basically redistributed almost all of that ownership to our team through a new 23% employee option pool. So our team over the next few years is going to have the opportunity to own as much as 38% of this company. As I said, we now own our factory, which is so cool. So we like to say now when our team goes to work, they're actually going to work in a factory that they're a part owner in. And we really, I've never like hid the fact that we want to sell this company one day. We want to find a buyer. I raised capital from investors. They've been super patient. We're so fortunate to have great investors who trust us and have been patient with us and understood us and are supportive of this so much. Going back to that stakeholder capitalism, by being a B Corp, they've been bought into this for a while now and come to accept it and understand this is part of our culture. So we want to grow this company, and it's that we want to sell to someone who has the financial resources to help us go even further. So that's a while out, but until that time, I want to work really hard to keep making sure that when that day comes, that the people who help build the value, the team coming to work every single day, have an outsized opportunity at financial success. So yeah, today's really exciting. We made these cool T-shirts.
Hey, there you go.
They proudly employee owned. We've gone certified with this great new certification called Certified Employee Owned. And we're super thrilled. So we had a big party on Zoom, of course, on Friday to share the news, and we're sharing it now mostly because we always hope to inspire others. I've always been inspired by brands like Patagonia and Cliff Bar, who I think are visionaries. You've had a lot of incredible leaders on your podcast, and traditional medicinals and Seventh Generation and others, and I want Fireclay to be thought of in that same way. I want us to in our way, in our spirit, especially starting at an earlier stage. I want people to see that you can offer your team great fair pay, you can do great benefits, you can think about employee ownership. You don't have to be a multi-$100 million company. You can do it in the earliest stages. You can do it before all that wealth is created, in the growth phase rather than at the end. So, I hope that we're an inspiration to others. I hope that, we can make news like this available so that others can learn and get curious and start thinking about how it might apply to their organization.
Well, Eric, you definitely fit the mold. Whether it's Patagonia innovating around an organic supply chain, you're doing the same thing. And so you're creating impact in your own way. And I think that's really inspiring to everyone listening out here. Now, for business owners specifically, why is this move a good idea? Why is this, when someone leaves the company, are there tax advantages? You said you were already doing this. I know you 8x the revenue the first time. Why is this a good move? And why do you believe people want to have ownership in their own company?
Yeah, well, I'll be honest. There are no tax advantages in the sense that all the tax advantages are for the funds and the fund managers and the professional investors and like those people. They're not for incentivizing employees with ownership. You mentioned kind of like, there are certain things if you had what is like an ESOP or the more traditional model where from a retirement perspective, but that's a ways off for a lot of our teams. So ours is more akin to what you find from technology companies or startups. It's a stock option plan. So, the tax advantages really only come if people choose to exercise their options early. But a lot of this ends up, frankly, if we are fortunate enough to have some kind of exit event, it ends up being almost treated like income. So sadly, there should be better tools and there should be better systems and methodologies to create employee ownership. It is way too complicated to do it, I'll be frank. But I think to answer your question, it really is more about the symbolic. I think so many times for the reasons I just mentioned, it's complicated, it's not the right tax thing. Are people really going to value it? We're not going to educate. They won't appreciate it. Those are all the things we just keep hearing time and time again as excuses. And I think that the doing it and putting it in place and saying this is yours has meaning. I think it's important. Yes, we could have chosen to just do a founder buyout and retire all those shares, and everyone who has ownership, they just see their ownership increase. Sure, I mean that's the standard approach. That's what a lot of corporations do with stock buybacks. But that's not what we think is the right thing. We think the right thing is, sharing with employees, making sure that they have opportunity. Is it a win-win-win all the time? No. There have been plenty of employees who, have disappointed us or, done things that aren't owner-oriented. But at the same time, I'm a firm believer that people have good intentions, that all people deserve opportunity. And, I think as my job as a CEO, one of my responsibilities is to think for our team and to be out in front of things. And whether that's a strategy or a benefit or a financial opportunity, if I can be out in front of it and create these opportunities in ways that they might not understand or have the privilege of knowing about, that's me doing one of the parts of my job.
Now, Eric, you mentioned systems change. What incentives would you like to see from a business owner's perspective that you would think would bring more leaders to the forefront to be in front of their own companies, to provide employee ownership, to think about their materials in a recyclable, renewable way? What systems change or incentives would you like to see?
Yeah, I mean, so tools, think about how many tools there are for CRM and acquiring customers and measuring your customer acquisition costs. I mean, just thinking about how many marketing tools there are. I mean, there's 2 tools to manage employee ownership. We use one of them called Carta, and it's too expensive. So more tools to make this easier to just manage the stuff around employee ownership. I think too, the legal front, the legal challenges are complex. Lawyers are expensive. They are very conservative. The reality is any benefit you give opens you up for lawsuits and compliance issues. And so the very nature of handing someone ownership means there's now another reason for someone to sue you. And so, there's all these legal reasons not to do this. So, simplifying the legal, creating more simplified legal structures to allow for ownership. You think how many companies there's a handful of organizations, business schools that preach this and talk about it. Not very many, not at all compared to the number of companies talking about winning customers, growing sales, raising capital, all of that kind of stuff. So we just need more academic interest around this. Organizations like Certified Employee Owned, I think, are great steps in that way. And then, I think entrepreneurs, owners, I think they just need to think differently. There's a little bit of the old school and new school mentality. And the old school mentality is I'm an owner, you're an employee. And that's I've had that conversation 100 times. The new school mentality, which I think, this is one of the beauties of Silicon Valley, and I give credit to California and a lot of the great companies out here. You see what happens when you give employees a skin in the game. Incredible innovation, incredible wealth creation. And so that same philosophy should absolutely be applied to more private enterprises outside of technology. We need to create a much more of an ownership culture for our team so that when they come to work, they're vested, they're motivated, they're bringing their full self. And I think, ownership is a key part of that and that opportunity. So I think you just need to change the mindset for that old school versus new school and get more leaders and entrepreneurs thinking about this and just asking the questions. Because the reality is, it's not nearly as hard as raising capital. It's not nearly as hard as acquiring customers. It's not nearly as hard as making whatever it is that you make or selling whatever it is that you sell. You just got to do it and spend some time on it and you'll figure it out.
So what are some of the conversations like you have? I'm interested because I like to have these conversations with people all the time. And some of the times friendly, sometimes they're not. But like, what do you tell someone who's like just trying to figure this out, who is a business owner, who just can't really see the way you see things? Like, what do you tell them?
That it's not going to be perfect. You're going to make mistakes, but you got to try. You might not. We started with 10% and look where we are today. It doesn't have to be 100%. So I think that, it's incremental stepwise improvement. It's 1% every day, right? Think about that improvement over the course of the year. I think it doesn't have to be this huge, big thing all of a sudden. It just, little bits, incremental gestures, trying it, putting your foot in the water, seeing what it feels like, that gets you going. So I think you just got to try it. Maybe it's just with your leadership team. Maybe it's with a few others. Like maybe you're calling your attorney and asking them about it. Maybe you're asking your friends. Maybe you're sending me an email. I think, there's a couple books out there to read. So, I think it's a couple of those things to just start learning. But I think you're going to make mistakes. It's not going to be as perfect as you want. You're going to end up giving parts of your company to people who you regret it. But the broad mentality will be right. And over time, hopefully it works out for you and for those team members who really helped build the wealth that you're going to benefit from.
So what is leadership's role in this then? I mean, you've been mentioning it throughout this entire podcast, kind of how you lead, kind of how you see the importance of your board and leadership and acquiring more leaders on staff. Like, what is really leadership's role in this fundamental change to improving or increasing a majority of a stakeholder capitalist society?
Yeah, I mean, I very much preach the idea of servant leadership and a little bit of the leaders eat last mentality. That I think was the title of one of Simon Sinek's books. And so I think it's about the people, it's about the customers, it's about the vendors, it's about all of your constituents. And I think environment and community are very much a part of that. So I'm here to serve, I'm here to eat last. And I literally always eat last at whatever event that we have, because it's really for everyone else. And my personal happiness is not going to be driven by how much money I have in the bank. My personal happiness is going to be driven by, am I eating well? Am I sleeping well? Am I getting some exercise? Am I around people who I love? And am I building great relationships? That's going to be happiness. And so, it's not going to be how much money. It's going to be, did I impact other people's lives? Did I change organizations? Did I change people? Did I change this world? And so, leadership to me is all about, being a servant to all of those others and making sure that, I'm thinking about myself last, and I'm putting myself in everyone else's shoes and hoping that they are set up for success.
Eric, did they teach you that in business school, what you just described?
Well, so the motto, so like yes and no. I would say more on the no. I mean, so Stanford's motto is change lives, change organizations, change the world. And yeah, I don't know, it's corny, but I'm always I think about it all the time. And so, during my time at Fireclay, I personally feel like I've had an impact in terms of changing lives and certainly changing organizations. And so now it's like this change the world. And so how can we be, how can this amazing group of 150 people and our board, impact other people? And how can we be a role model and set an example to inspire others to have more positive impact?
You mentioned community a while ago. What exactly do you mean by that? How is Fireclay investing in the community, and how are you reaping the benefits of that? It's kind of interesting because a few organizations do, and it's kind of blurred lines.
Yeah. So I'll answer it a few ways. One, I think you got to be transparent about this. So we're Pledge 1% members. So we pledge 1% of ownership. and 1% of products. So we give 1% of, so if we sold 1 million square feet last year, we'll give 10,000 square feet to those in need. So we make this transparent. We have a few different give back programs. If we had more time, I would tell you about how much I despise credit card merchant fees. And so if you actually check out at our website, or if you buy tile from us, we incentivize you to pay with e-check. And then we actually have this program where you give some money into an employee fund and you get a refund to save the really high expense from credit card merchant fees. But that's another topic altogether. So I think, as it relates to community, you got to pick your choices. So Mark Benioff, founder of Salesforce, a couple of years ago at Dreamforce, their user conference, he challenged everyone to go and adopt a public school locally. And he said there's 200,000 public schools in the U.S. If every business here in this room listening to this talk went and adopted a public school, just imagine the impact we had. So we actually have this public school down the street from us, half mile down the street, an elementary school called the Aroma School. And I literally did that. I walked in and met the principal, and I said, Heather, what can we do to support you? And so we give financial resources. This year we spent a couple $1,000s, and we literally handed out art supplies to all 380 children, because this is a community that's not as financially stable, and so crayons and markers, not things that everyone has. So we created art bags, very much on brand for Fireclay. But I think things like that. We're actually just this month, along with our employee ownership, we're introducing a new hardship relief fund in partnership with a group called Philanthropy, which we're excited about. And then we're starting to do charitable matching for our team. So not that much, just up to $250 a person. But if people want to give back to organizations that they believe in, we'll match it. And again, it's $250. Some might think that that's a lot of money. Some might think that's not a lot of money. It's what we could afford. Maybe next year it's $400, but it's a start. And it helps giving at least our team a mentality that hey, if I give, I'll be able to amplify my impact. So I think community is, it's got to be really clear and transparent. Fireclay can't just say, we support, XYZ organization. We have to be transparent around, we've pledged 1%, or this is how this program works, or these are the organizations we're supporting, and this is the money that we're paying. And so I think that transparency really matters. And I think us being accountable to these kinds of systems ensures that we keep that up.
Eric, we've talked about the stakeholders today, the customers, the suppliers, the distributors, the investors that are aligned with your values, the leadership, and now the community. Let's bring this home, Eric. What is your definition of a real leader?
So, to me, a real leader is someone who is very authentic and clear with their values and leads with intention. So for me, it's really about that idea of a servant leader and making sure that the people that I serve and that I lead are better off tomorrow than they are today. And we try to do that with values, and we try to do that with authenticity.
Well, Eric, appreciate your time coming on the Real Leaders Podcast. Go on and celebrate with your employees today. Congratulations. We're really excited for you all. I'm really glad we made this happen after our first meeting back in May. So again, for Eric Edelson, I'm Kevin Owers, asking you to go out there, lead with intention, folks, and always keep it real. Thanks, Eric.
Kevin, that was awesome. Thank you so much.
Of course. All right, audience, Crowdcast, LinkedIn, where are you? Ask your questions here for Eric. We want to make sure we appreciate his time here coming back on the Real Leaders Podcast, all 48 minutes. First questions coming in from Julie. Eric, Julie asks, excellent input. Thank you. How do you keep yourself and your team engaged and positive amid the challenges of COVID?
Oh, yeah. Well, if you know me and our team, I'm super positive. So I have this really corny thing that I do where I don't say good morning, I say great morning. And just because I have this belief that why shouldn't every day be great? And same thing, Fridays, it's never TGIF. It's always it's a little bit I hate that mentality that Monday is whatever the moon days and from Office Space, but it's you should be stoked to come to work on Monday. You spend a huge amount of your time here. If you hate work, don't come to work. Don't be here. Go find something you want to do. So I think, it starts at the top. I try to be very positive. I try to be very enthusiastic. I think COVID has been, a really challenging time. And I think we've handled that with, we've had some really clear guiding principles for us. around health and safety, around ensuring the success of our clients, and making sure that we're not practicing any form of discrimination or harassment. And so by making sure that we had like the 3 guiding principles that we stayed true, I think it created space for us to also have fun and also celebrate. So, safety and health and wellness, like we've never compromised anywhere there. We focus on the business, but I think also we've tried to meet people where they are. And whether that's through, considerations on time off, whether that's through, new programs for people working at home, just trying to like ask questions. We've done pulse surveys either monthly or every other month. We've done a lot of like all hands and communication. So I think it's just been like trying to just be real with people, whether it was like, March 20th with me just like literally like almost crying on the screen and saying, I'm not sure where this is going to go. And to, sharing like moments of joy around new employee ownership. So, but I think I've just tried to stay as real and authentic. And when it was challenging, I was very clearly emotional and challenged. But outside of that, trying to find opportunity for optimism and checking in and, chatting and texting and calling and just trying to stay positive with folks.
Now, Eric, how did COVID impact the tile industry? I know a lot of people were reconstructing homes during that time, but also it's a recession. So how did it impact you guys?
Yeah, home has been off the charts. And so I think a lot of that is more what I'll call like decorator business. And so home office or, rearranging things, quick wins, furniture, wallpaper, paint, things that like DIY, our business, it's a high-end product. We have installation as a whole secondary part of this. Like we don't have a lot of DIYers. And so you have installers. And so that's a natural, we can't just like double overnight. And plus we manufacture. So the hardest thing for us was we're near San Francisco. So we're just about an hour and a half south of San Francisco. So this was the epicenter of COVID. And so when the state closed and when this Bay Area closed, we were shut down for a couple of weeks. And that was, really tough to when we say our factory is like our heart and all of a sudden the heart's not pumping, it literally felt like we were dead. And so then we slowly like practiced some CPR, had a few people in there, a few more. And, for a couple of months we were running, but because of physical distancing and cleaning and God, we're then in a production environment with masks and eyewear. It's really hard. So we just were slower and we were able to kind of keep up. We were really communicative with our people, but it was amazing. Obstacles the way. We ended up kind of creating a lot of new ways of doing things. We innovated on the plant floor, things that we had planned for, a year from now, we all of a sudden implemented. And, our efficiency levels that we've been able to hit are literally things I modeled for 2 years from now. So, we have really accelerated progress. Our business has been good. We're up from last year. We're not quite where we thought we'd be on the year, but like we're more profitable. We are better in so many ways. And I think we've done just a really good job of staying transparent with our team and with our clients.
Well said. Now it looks like our audience is a little shy, so we'll wrap up with this. Eric, where can more people find more information about Fireclay Tile, and why should they go check out the site?
Oh yeah, so our Instagram you mentioned is awesome, and it's the best one out there. It's really we do this super cool thing on Fridays called Factory Friday. So we're really transparent. Someone once said that we're bright and open. So we share a lot, and so you can get like full insight into how we make our orders and your order, and like down to. I mean, I have my plant manager going, Eric, are you sure we should be like showing them all of this stuff? Like this is our secret, and I was like, it's good. Our secret is us. It's our people. It's our process. Like we'll invite anyone to come see what we do. But our website, fireclaytile.com. Hit me up on LinkedIn. You'll see I write a lot. I try to share a lot. And anyway, we're out there, but we'd love to help you out.
Well, Eric, again, appreciate you coming back on this show. I know you're a fan. I'm happy we got you back on. And what gets in the way becomes the way, my friend. So
awesome.
Thanks again for coming back on the show. Enjoy your time and your Zoom party with the employees. And always, Eric, keep it real.
All right. Thank you, Kevin.